So this presentation is transcription tools and efficiency, speeding up your transcription workflow. And today is March 18th, 2021. And so I thank you guys for being here. My name is Benjamin Jaffe. I've been in the multimedia industry for over 15 years now. I am the manager of digital training and development for BlueLedge. Formerly, I was the legal technology manager at Orange Legal. I am AAERT certified as a CER, and I'm the communication chair for AAERT. And so I really appreciate you guys joining us here today. Now, before we get started, we did have a poll up. I hope everybody answered the poll questions. Can we get those results, please, put onto the screen? All right. First, we're going to start with what tools. Sorry, my questions on the screen and the poll were out of order, but we'll just go out of order. That's fine. So it seems like 74% of people are using an audio player and a foot pedal, which is really important for efficiency. So we know about that. 26% of you are using text expansion systems. If you do not know what that is, Betsy is going to talk. She is our expert on that. 31% of you are using macros and autocorrects built into your word processor. So combined, over 55% of you all are using some form of text expander or autocorrection. 37% of you are using some form of grammar checking software. So something like Grammarly, that's great, or maybe the ones built into your word processor. 14% of you all are using some form of ASR, AI, speech recognition. 6% are using document comparison tools, and 23% are using others. So there are more tools available, and our panelists are definitely going to discuss those. In our audience today, we have 34% digital court reporters, 61% legal transcribers, 7% medical transcribers, 21% proofreaders, 9% scopists, 7% are editors, QA or QC personnel, 13% of people joining us are other types of transcribers, and 6% are just considering themselves outside that list. So we do have a diverse group, but it does seem we are focused on transcription, which is the point of this webinar. So that makes complete sense to me. So thank you guys for joining us. This is the largest audience we have had to date of these webinars, which is great. We're so happy. So moving on. Let's introduce our panel. First, Betsy Earle. She is the owner of Speed Type Text Expansion System. She was the former vice president, treasurer, board member, and education committee chairperson for AAERT. She's been in the transcription industry for over 45 years, mainly focused in medical transcription. She did get trained as a stenographer from the Stenotype Institute in Jacksonville, starting in 1991, although she did settle in the medical transcription industry, and she is a member of a wide variety of associations and groups within legal and medical transcription. So thank you for joining us, Betsy. Vita Greenstone is the legal operations team leader at Verbit. She is a CET member of AAERT. She was a legal transcriptionist since 2018 and has her master's degree in forensic linguistics, and was a former educational consultant, forensic linguistic consultant, and English teacher. So she has a very strong background in exactly what we're talking about. So thank you so much for joining us. Larry Lara is here live today. If you guys were on last time, he had a little bit of technical difficulty, but we have him here, and I'm so excited. He is the current quality development specialist at Allegis. He is a California certified stenographer and shorthand reporter. He is also a certified reporter instructor from NCRA and has experience in legal and insurance transcription, and teaches court reporting at colleges today. So he brings a lot of diverse experience and knowledge of what he passes on to his students. And last but certainly not least, Julie Thompson is the owner of Thompson Transcription since 2000. She is a certified electronic transcriptionist and the founder of Transcription Alliance Facebook group, a very large, I saw what, almost 1,600 or over that people are part of. And if you are a transcriptionist and you're not part of that group, I would highly recommend it. It's a great resource. And she did her initial training through stenographic court reporting school, but settled as a transcriber. So thank you very much. So with that being said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we are going to get into the questions. Starting with Betsy, why do you think efficiency is important to being a transcriber?
Well, I think that probably if we type smarter and not harder, we can achieve more output in a shorter time frame, and that's going to equal more money for us to make. So it's all about the process that we put into place so that we're the most productive we can be.
And Julie, I know you transcribe every day, so what's your opinion on efficiency?
Well, just like Betsy said, smarter, not harder. This is what we do to make money. You're trying to produce the best pages you can as fast as you can, and to get those jobs back to your clients. So.
Great. And Larry, you have a slightly different take because you're teaching stenographers and you're working for a transcription company. So you're doing a lot of the training of newer people. What do you talk to them about when you're talking about efficiency?
Well, my approach is to sort of focus on the quality and to try to have more of that efficiency come a little bit more naturally. In other words, don't mix up efficiency with expediency. Don't try to be in a hurry to get to that level of expertise. Let it come somewhat naturally. Focus on the planning aspect of it. There are things you can do to plan the way you're going to tackle a job, the way you're going to approach things, your process. That's more, I think, the focus at the beginning, whereas just the natural speed that comes with developing habits when we do things over and over. Try not to rush that. Let that come naturally. If you rush to get through the jobs quickly to make more money, that's the goal, bottom line, right? Efficiency equals more money. But if you're rushing to get to that point, you're going to lose accuracy. But yes, it's very important. We want to be as smooth with our production as we can, fewest interruptions, not wasting time doing circles. So efficiency is huge. It's directly related to the bottom line. You gotta be efficient with what you're doing, but just let it come naturally is my approach.
Well, and as you said, efficiency is so important, but that's just going to get you through your pages. The quality is going to bring back people to you, so you can't miss that. Especially if you're thinking about your bottom line. Vita, what do you think about why is quality important? Kind of based off of what Larry has said.
Yeah, I think maybe it helps to look from a different perspective. We're always looking from our end of the pages that we turn in, but in legal proceedings, the end user, even the smallest changes, they have a real impact on real people, real lives, real proceedings. And I think that's really important not to forget. Especially now, if someone's not hearing the audio like you are, the effect is even more profound. There's a very big difference between writing, I don't know versus I don't know. A case can hinge on that. And as somebody who worked with these kinds of transcripts in academia, I've had bribery cases that hinge on one word, you versus y'all. So I really can't overstate how important the accuracy is for the people involved and for kind of the legal field. And that's why it's been a big focus as well for us internally. You can have scale, right? You can have efficiency and accuracy and technology and all these really nice buzzwords, but at the end of the day, the foundation has to be the quality. Otherwise, it's not worth much,
And Julie, as a producer of pages, you see that balance every day of going between quality and efficiency and working with people. How do you find that balance point?
Well, I feel like you need to do your best on all the jobs. Like Vita said, you're doing this for your client. You're doing this so that your client has a product that they can use for their case. And if you're not producing quality pages, if your accuracy is not there, if you're not producing it in a format that's professional, that client's not going to come back to you. So not only is it important for your client, but it's important for return business and business in general.
Great. Well, and tools are so important to keep that quality high, but gain those efficiencies. And that's what we're here to talk about today. It sounded like from our survey, quite a few people are using playback software and foot pedals. Things are available on the market that allow you to keep your hands on the keyboard and typing, so you don't have to be moving back and forth to the mouse. That is such an important thing. Betsy, you've been doing medical and legal transcription. What is the importance of keeping your fingers on that keyboard versus, reaching for that mouse every few minutes to change the audio?
Right. Every time you reach for the mouse, you're losing keystrokes. So whenever your hands leave the keyboard, you're having a deficit in your striking keys on the keyboard. So that's why it's so important that you're structured with shortcut keys, hotkeys, building strings of text, command codes, working macros, those kinds of things to help you be very, very efficient without having to use the mouse.
Well, and you are kind of our text expansion expert, being the owner of SpeedType. So tell me, explain text expansion to our webinar viewers and why that could make somebody more efficient.
Okay, so if you have, so text expansions use keywords and descriptions, right? Just like in autocorrect, you have a keyword, you have the description of that keyword or the expansion of that keyword. So let's say you have TC for the court. That's that's 2 letters, right? 2 characters. And the court is what? 11 characters. So every time you use the court and you type TC, that will give you 11 THE. Somebody count that for me. I'm sorry, I didn't count it ahead of time. Let's say 9 characters, okay, with the space. But every time you type that TC, you're saving 2 from 9 would be 7 characters. So that's just a simplistic equation of every time you use a shortcut key and get the expanded text or the block of text, you're going to save a ton of typing.
Well, and you can load in things like your certificates, your
Right.
title pages, all of that as well.
Right. And jury charges, repetitive jury charges, and judges' names and credentials, and yeah, just all kinds of addresses. Anything you need that's repetitive, you would put in your expansion dictionary.
And now, Larry, as a stenographer, you use CAT software, which has briefs and similar things like expanders and shortcuts and things like that. Maybe can you explain how those CAT softwares and the word processors make you more efficient?
Oh gosh, yes, absolutely. I mean, obviously with a steno machine, where I saw the survey, there's some folks out there who are familiar, Scopus and all that. So that's great. We've got a great audience out there, a nice mix. The steno machine, that's my background. I teach it. I started out as a depot stenographer. And so very similarly, we're going to do a lot more with our per stroke. We're going to have a lot more production happening. Every time we touch the keys, we're getting at least one full word, and often, phrases. It's a combination of keys working syllabically, for the most part. So that's key for me. I'm mostly on my steno machine. Of course, I use the foot pedal. My approach is kind of use it all. You're going to use those fingers, keep them moving. I'm going to try to not to use my mouse as much as I can, but I'm going to use my foot pedal. I'm going to use my voice. I'm going to do a little voice recognition. I'm using everything I've got to keep the cursor moving forward. The one thing, if I could just mention, because obviously not everybody has the background of steno training. There is a great app out there that is free for those folks who maybe have had some training, who just aren't certified, but they're familiar with stenography. Maybe they've got an old machine that they're not using anymore from court reporting school, what have you. There is a great software app out there called Plover, Plover. As I say, it's free. And so that's what I use. It's obviously free. It is a lot more affordable than the CAT software programs that are out there, computer assisted transcription programs that court reporters used. It's much more of a simpler program. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it does the job. And the nice thing about, well, besides being free, it works with anything. It's basically taking your computer and allowing it to have a secondary keyboard. So the steno keyboard acts like a regular QWERTY keyboard. You can use both. So I can use my stenoing in my emails and my chat box, whatever app I'm in, I'm on my steno machine. So if anybody out there is interested, as I say, if you have that experience and you want to kind of use those skills, you don't have to be completely on the steno machine. You can kind of do both. And then just one more thing on that for anyone out there, maybe who doesn't have any experience, you still might want to check it out. It could be worth it if you're interested. Not that you're aiming to get to 200 words a minute, but one area that the Plover folks have focused on is bringing steno to the masses, not just for certified court reporters. So they have, there are tools or instructions on being able to use regular keyboards, certainly mechanical keyboards or a lot of other keyboards where you can use some of these keys as a steno machine. So you can have a regular sort of keyboard doing the same kind of shortcuts as a steno keyboard by just doing the combinations. Instead of just doing the J and the K, you're doing combinations of those letters, and you can incorporate that. We don't obviously want to get too deep into that. You'll have to do
Yeah,
some
Larry,
research, but
I
it's a great
appreciate
tool.
I appreciate you telling everybody about that, and certainly that is a great tool. And CAT software isn't just for stenographers; voice writers use it, legal transcribers use it. It helps you format your documents very quickly, create briefs, do all sorts of things. So if you haven't used it or haven't looked at that, that's great. Also, there are different word processors with different templates. And then there are custom built platforms. Vita, I know you work for Verbin. You guys have kind of a custom built workflow that your transcription team uses that assists using AI. You were describing this to me last week when we met to discuss this. So maybe you can talk about some of the comparisons, some of the tools you guys are using.
Sure. If you guys will allow me maybe also to take a little bit of a step back. I know that AI, it's kind of like this big buzzword right now. And I want to start off by maybe defining it a little bit so we're all on the same page. I know it gets a kind of a bad rap because people are very concerned that it's going to replace people, take away jobs. And I think it's a very legitimate concern. So I want to start off by saying, very unequivocally that that's not the case and that's not the goal. Computers are very good at complex, repetitive rules, calculations, algorithmic thinking, but they don't understand like the semantic subtleties in the real world context that transcribers do, especially, transcribers with years and years of experience. And in the same way, humans are very good at all of that subtext and pragmatics, but it's hard for us to hold hundreds of rules in our heads and, parallel processing, typing, listening. That's why we have all of these tools, these briefs, these text expansion softwares, loading in your pages, because it's hard to hold all of that. It's a very big cognitive load. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but I think transcription is a very underappreciated field. Everyone's like, oh, I speak English, I can transcribe. And we all know it's not exactly the case. So, what's really, I think, important for me and for our platform, going back to your question, we really believe in this hybrid approach, where the AI and the robust speech technology, it's a game changer because you have the human finesse combined with the technological power, which translates to the transcriptionist working faster and reducing the cognitive load, like I said, which maximizes both the quality of their product and obviously their efficiency and their earning potential. We've done a lot of internal testing, A/B testing, just to make sure that our assumptions are always backed up by data. And we've seen that for some people, going from the ASR instead of going from scratch, it cuts the time in half. And I don't, that's substantial. You can do 10 pages instead of 5. That has real life, impact on you. And it's really important kind of to note that not all AI or all ASR is equal. There's obviously different, Google has theirs, we have our own in-house one. They all function a little bit differently. So I'm just going to speak to the way that ours functions. It's a really robust speech engine in the sense that every edit that you make on our platform is fed back into the engine. So it's constantly learning and bettering itself. It's always getting better based on that human impact. And we can also extract information like the lawyers' names from the notice, that spelling list from the court reporter worksheet. You can really leverage the information that you have, and you teach the model to automatically insert those things. So that cuts down on your research time and a lot of these things where you're stepping away from your keyboard, going to the mouse, going to Google, all of that. We can also train the ASR with semantic and phonetic models. So it can be better equipped to handle, if somebody has a very deep South accent, that can be challenging. So you can train the machine to deal with that, or medical jargon or legal Latin, all of these things. And the last thing that I kind of want to talk about is that AI is not really the be all and end all. So we always need that last layer of human eyes. An engine could do a lot of complex things. You guys might have heard of like probability scores. It's weighing what the most likely word is. But we actually, based on some of our experiments and running this, we chose not to show that to the transcriber, because we find that when you artificially tell someone like focus on this word, they tend to miss the stuff that's before and after. There's something really hard to imitate in especially experienced transcribers' focus and proofing. So at the end of the day, the technology, it's meant to be there as a very powerful tool, but it's kind of seamlessly in the background as a technological safety net. We're helping you not forget all those tiny little rules in the guideline about how to punctuate this, or what exactly this parenthetical might be. We want you to focus on higher level editing so that you can have the most accurate and the most efficient output without all of the mental load that comes with that.
And thank you so much, Vida. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's interesting to hear you talk about that. And I know I've talked to some very traditional transcriptionists who find it slower. So I think it's how you're trained and how you can look at the situation. This isn't a one size fits all kind of solution. None of these are. Some people are better with text expanders. Other people are better with, grammar checkers. Other people are better using their built-in, autocorrects in their word processor. So it really does depend on you, but these are just great suggestions on how people can get involved. But one of the ways that can really impact us is our environment. What are we using? What is our equipment? So, Julie, what does your environment look like? Do you have any ergonomic tips or hardware tips for the viewers today?
Hardware tips. Well, for ergonomic, I think you just have to find the chair. The chair is very important. Your desk is important. For me, I personally use a slider keyboard tray. I don't think I could type without it, but the chair took some finding. And once you can find a chair, that's a big thing, because if you're dealing with pain on top of trying to work, that's just something that you're going to lose focus on. So I think as far as ergonomically, your chair, your keyboard, and then just, your setup. You don't want to be thinking about anything but working. You don't want to be thinking about, your back's hurting, your legs are hurting while you're working.
Oh, I understand that. I had wrist problems. I had to switch to one of those scroll ball mouses. So I completely understand finding the right equipment. Larry, you and I have spoken in the past, and you have how many monitors is it?
Well, I've got 2 over on that desk and 3 on this desk, but I'm looking to maybe add at least 1 more over there.
And why do you find, more monitors to be better for you?
I like, if you're just doing, say, just one transcription, assignment at a time, I mean, maybe 1 monitor is okay. I mean, I'm generally only transcribing 1 at a time as well, but throughout the day, I'm doing multiple, I'm doing multiple things. So especially in my day job, I'm doing a lot of grading and proofing, and I need to be able to, cross-reference the paperwork and whatnot. So, I mean, you got to be able to see, like Julie was saying, you got to be comfy. That to me is a big part of it. I need, these things have been, this is a kind of a new for me the last few years. And boy, I tell you, I appreciate the bigger screens more and more. But yeah, you want to be comfortable. You want to be able to see. You don't want to have to be struggling. You want good lighting. Julie hit it on the nose as far as just being able to have that focus, have that concentration. It goes back to being, how productive are you? What we talked about at the beginning, if your environment is not working for you, if you're not comfortable, if you got bad lighting, you've got the TV right there where it's easily going to pull your attention away, that's not ideal. That's not the approach.
And
So
Betsy, I know you ran out and got a new pair of headphones this past week, but what do headphones matter? I mean, why is that such a big deal? The comfort and for detail and for the quality.
Actually, the headset's very important because that determines how well you hear your audio file, whether you hear the depth of it, whether you hear it in a bass or in a tenor or whatever. And that's going to make a difference in your transcript. If you're going to skip words, or if you get a piece of a word, or if you can listen to the whole word, your headset is everything, just like your foot pedal. It's so important. And I was agreeing with Julie with the ergonomics, because I mean, I've listened to presentations on ergonomics, and over the years, it's like your elbows are supposed to be at a 45-degree angle, your face is supposed to be 3 feet away from your monitor, your back's supposed to be straight, your feet on the floor, that, just lots of things that go with the ergonomic correctness of being comfortable in a remote environment. It's very, very important.
Well, and that's true. Most legal transcribers are remote, working from home. They need to construct a quiet environment, someplace that they can pay attention, that they're not, as Larry said, distracted by the TV. That's one of my vices when I'm trying to do things late at night. I often have that on. And you're right. I reread those emails in the morning, and they're not as exact as I wish they were. So, yeah, definitely that lack of distraction is important. And the equipment you use, the hardware, the software, and the tools. Vita, you spoke earlier about ASR, and we talked a little bit about, or you talked a little bit about increasing one's efficiency. Maybe someone can do 10 pages instead of 5, and that produces more pay usually, and that can produce more efficiency. Can you talk about maybe some of the other tools you guys use with the ASR to help people be more efficient?
Sure. I don't want to get too technical and scare anyone away. So I'm going to kind of speak at a very high level. But like I said, I think our approach is focusing on that technological safety net, and that comes in a few forms. So first of all, we try to make our platform, it has all these elements, the foot pedal and the things that we're talking about here. So it has kind of all those things that you're used to, but we do all of the, let's say, formatting, the margins, the page numbers, all those technical, how the page looks. We do all that on the back end. We don't want our transcribers to worry about that, to think about that. So all they have to do is kind of focus on the words that are there in a very kind of word processor style. And in addition, we have things called validations, where we kind of tell the computer what to look for. So let's say a very basic example, right? The word social security should be capped. And you're typing hundreds of pages and you just, you missed it and you forgot. When you go to submit that file, there's going to be a little validation that pops up that says, hey, I see that you have social security here under, lowercase. Would you like to fix that? You do yes. And, and it goes through and helps you kind of fix all of those issues. It helps with that final QC before you submit. So you have the confidence that you didn't miss something. Obviously you're rereading and listening, but it's very hard to actually spot check your own work. We have kind of a mental, a block. When you're reading, you kind of tend to read the correct version in your head. So we have the validations, and sorry, on top of that, we also have something called entity resolution and speaker resolution. So especially when you get into these more complex cases where you have, 6, 7, 10 speakers, and some of them are very similar, it can get very hard to kind of keep them straight. You always have your annotations and log notes to help you out, but it doesn't always cover, there are always those times when you need a little bit of help. And so what the software does is it's saying, hey, this voice and this voice sound pretty similar. It lets you listen to sections and it helps you make those decisions, pulls it out of that context so you can, you have just kind of another tool in your arsenal to figure those situations out. And same thing with the entity. So if I write, Larry, if I write his last name once correctly, and one time I accidentally put in a U and write Laura because, I'm typing fast and I didn't see it. It's going to say, hey, I see that you have Laura. Do you want to fix this? And it shows you a little snippet of context and you can listen to it. So it brings all of these things to your attention to help you where your brain kind of blocks those things out and assumes the correct pattern. And I think it's really, really important because you can be super professional, have lots of expertise, but there's an element of mental fatigue. You do an 8-hour day And you can have a really silly mistake that goes out to the customer, and later you're going to be very embarrassed about it. So we try to have the computer that doesn't have to worry about fatigue and all of that, try to help you out in those scenarios.
And you guys have, your own proprietary software system I know that you use for your transcribers, but there are other ways to achieve that. I don't want people to think that you can only do it proprietarily. Like Betsy, I know, well, I am terrible at spelling things, and that I'm the worst culprit of writing ing at the end of the word wrong. I always write IGN. So speed type can help with that, right? Or any
Correct.
text expander can help somebody check, those type of things. Can you explain how a tool like that may help me become a better speller?
Sure. If you constantly type IGN instead of ING, you can use that IGN for your keyword, because that's a natural thing you're going to type. It's going to come out of your brain, out of your fingers. And then the text expansion system is going to flip that around to ING, because that's how you programmed it. So it's a simple process where you can use it for your typos. And if you mistype TEH instead of THE, you use the TEH for your keyword, and then the expansion system flips it around to THE.
And a keyword is like a shortcut. Other
Correct.
softwares call that other things, but it can be a shortcut or a
A
brief
brief.
or anything like that. So that's great. The other thing that Vita mentioned was setting up and the formatting and getting yourself a proper template and setting yourself up, knowing what that proper template is so important. Larry, you must teach templating. You must, have to deal with templates from across the country with your job at Allegis. How do you guys kind of handle that and train new people on templating?
Gosh, that's that's where we could maybe use a little bit of that, the computer helping us out. It just we go basically by the our model is pretty generic as far as the template. We're not very specific for each client. It's for the most part, it's pretty much this straight across the board, across all states with a few exceptions. I mean, obviously the line numbers, but the style for the most part, it's a generic template. So for the most part, we just have to make sure that that our transcribers are aware of, what state, how many lines per page, that sort of thing. But I really like the stuff that Vita's talking about, those tools, the backup stuff, having the computer help you out. She's really hitting home as far as just the fatigue that happens, no matter how smart you are, how experienced you are. That happens to all of us. I mean, I've been certified for, gosh, 20, almost 30 years as a stenographer, and I still find every so often a stupid mistake that was just like, how did I miss this? It just happens. It's our brains. So those tools, they're the way where we're heading with the AI. It's exciting stuff. I think really helpful stuff.
And I just want to hit home that ASR is a great tool, like all of these tools that we've talked about, but it needs that human touch. And Vita, I know you guys spend a lot of time with this technology, but you guys still have humans, many levels sometimes of humans, going back and making sure that these transcripts are perfect. And that's an important part of your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said earlier, I don't think that we're going to get to the stage, at least not in the near future. And I don't think ever that it's just ASR is going to be enough. There's so much nuance, as you guys know, there's so many different levels. You go from very high level Latin to some very unique slang from this area of the country to lots of context and things. It's something that ASR, it's equipped to handle only so much because it doesn't understand the real world. It can be taught many, many rules, but at the end of the day, humans are living in the real world. They understand a lot of sarcasm, subtext, all of these things that are really, really important. Cases can hinge on those kinds of things, on tone, on pausing, on word choice. So yeah, absolutely. ASR is an amazing tool. But I think human transcribers also, it's something that we don't appreciate as much as we should, how hard our brains are working and how much parallel processing they're doing. For us, it's a really important part. And we also do, I guess I'm going to do a little plug here for you, Benjamin. We try to make sure that we train our people as well, so they have that context, so they can hear correctly, because you hear what you're expecting to hear. There's a lot of schema that goes into that. So if you understand how the courts work, you understand what goes into these cases, you're going to be a better transcriber as well. So it's very important for us that we have the maximum technological capability, but also to really invest in our human capital. It's not something that I want to, put to the side. It's a very important part for us.
Well, and oh, sorry, Larry, did you have?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was just agreeing. Absolutely. It's just 100%, the brain, the human brain, that's the best tool we've got. We can't go without it. I don't see that happening either.
Well, and speaking of the human brain, the human in that seat, and thank you, Vita, for talking about training. What about certification? Why is that so important? Julie, you're certified. You understand. You've gone through the process. Why did you go for that? And why is that so important to becoming a better transcriber, which everybody who's attending, I think, wants to become?
Well, when I started, certification was not a thing, but as time went on and AAERT got more known, some of the courts started recognizing that, hey, we could use transcriptionists, but we need a way of knowing that these transcriptionists know the rules, have experience. And so AAERT, by offering the CET exam, that shows you take that test, you pass it, and it tells the court this person knows, they've passed this test, they have the experience, they have the skills. And so it gets your foot in a lot of doors having that certification. I know for me, I personally put it off for a number of years, but I wish that I had done it earlier. So I do feel that it's an important step for people to take.
And Betsy, I know you worked hard for many years on the educational component, mentorship, and events like these. Like, why is that so important to becoming a better transcriber? I mean, I know we're talking about tools and efficiencies, but one of the efficiencies is learning from others.
Correct. And certification is so important, Ben, in any industry that you engage in. It shows that you're a high achiever, that you're a step above the rest. And it's a recognition basically in the community you work in. It shows people that you went the second mile to study for that test, to pass that test, and to gain that credential, as well as having to keep up with your CEUs every 3 years. AERT has 30 units every 3 years that you are required to keep. So that's important that you keep up with your continuing education credits and that you're always studying and thriving to be better at your trade, at your profession.
Well, yeah, and you guys have all talked about growing and the growing number of transcribers, but that's because of the growing number of digital reporters and digital recording in courtrooms and reporting and those types of things. So, Vita, I know you know about this as a startup. You guys are kind of riding the wave of growth. Can you talk about how that growth has impacted the industry?
Yeah. Sorry, I apologize for the background noise. Yeah, I think everyone will agree with me that we're living in kind of very unique times right now. With global pandemic and just generally kind of the nature of work from home has changed and the expectations of where you can work and all of that. And obviously with the pandemic, everything is for us. I mean, we've seen a meteoric rise in the number of digital depositions. Everything's through Zoom. Some courts are very, very slowly thinking of resuming in person, maybe doing hybrid models. Some are saying, Zoom is here to stay. And so I think it's something that we need to be able to adapt. And I think it works really well, actually. It plays to the strengths of digital reporting, because we're able to do that. Also, we understand in the market that currently there's not enough stenographers to cover the need. So we need more digital reporters just to be able to cover all the legal processes that we have. The US, for better or worse, is a very litigious place, and everyone has, the right to the fair and swift trial, and we need the workforce to be able to keep up with that. And I think I probably should have prepared some numbers. I'm sorry that I didn't, but I mean, I can tell you that we've seen massive peaks the last few months. It's been just an intense growth. And I think it's here to stay, especially now that things are kind of starting to resume the normal pace after we're getting out of the shock of the pandemic, more or less.
Well, and that growth leads to new opportunities. Julie, I know on your group, you talk about opportunities for new transcribers, for those who are looking for more work. What are you seeing from that aspect?
I'm seeing it finally starting to flow, you know, during the months, the first year of the pandemic. Things were really tight, not a whole lot moving, but I see the wheels starting to flow. Um, I feel like, you know, the avalanche is coming as far as work, like Vita says, it's going to get really busy here because there's so much backup. So there's a lot of opportunity for new transcriptionists, obviously, with everybody working from home. I think even more people are looking at it as a possible career choice. There is a lot of opportunity. I definitely think that, you know, it's not a job for everybody, but yeah, right now the work is still probably slow for a bunch of new people, but there's going to be a lot of opportunity out there coming anytime soon.
And Larry, I know you and I have talked a lot because we help train some of your team or your new people coming to join your team. So what is the opportunity looking like from your perspective?
Yeah, that's right. The avalanche, if it's not, you know, already begun, it's definitely right around the corner. You know, I mean, it's same thing for us. Like Vita was saying, the amount of growth that we've had over the last, you know, since that initial shock, you know, when we first locked it down right about a year ago, a couple of weeks or so, I mean, we definitely slowed down. It was just that, whoa, hold on. But you know, right after that, it started ticking up, and it's been just ridiculously busy. So there's plenty of work happening right now for new folks and experienced people.
So are you hiring?
Oh yes, for goodness sake, yes. What do you think I'm doing here?
Good question,
Absolutely.
Ben.
If I didn't say it already, Allegis Transcription. If you're looking us up, make sure you put transcription in there. There's another Allegis out there, but Allegis Transcription jobs, that should take you right to our page. You know, the newer transcribers, newer folks probably are going to fit in on the insurance side for us. On the legal side, we generally are going to need some kind of experience, or somebody who's gone through BlueLedge, you know, some kind of a training certification. But you know, we're turning down work still. We still are not at the point where we have evened out. We're, you know, projected growth is still that way, up, up, up.
Good, good. Well, I mean, that's great news for the industry, people who are looking to get out there. You know, I want to get back to the kind of the tools and the efficiencies. So I want to just let everybody kind of go around and either say one tool or one efficiency that you think that somebody in the audience really needs to know about. You know, if it's something that they can, you know, especially something that they can grasp, that they can learn from. So, Betsy, I have a feeling I know what yours is going to be, but I'll let you start.
That's okay. I just want to let the audience know that when if you're looking at expansion systems, you might want to consider the universal usage of an expansion system is so important in this day and age, with us all being remote, doing VPNs and different browsers and so forth. You want a macro expansion system that works anywhere in the Windows operating system. It's so important. And when you do research out on the World Wide Web, you want to have your shortcuts expand, or you want to be able to copy and paste definitions direct into your dictionary file. Those kinds of things are very important that enhance your directories, your knowledge base, and your library of macros, so that you want to compare features when you're looking around. So I think the most important thing is consider your workflow, what you need to make yourself the highest producer, and realize what you do need for your job.
Well, and I have to imagine, and I know this because I've seen, you know, some of your demos, is that, you know, it's great if you're using it when you're transcribing, but then if you go and write an email and you don't have the same tool, you're training and untraining and you're flip-flopping. And so
Correct.
if you can find a tool that's utilized not just in your word processor or not just in your CAT software, but can be used universally throughout your processes, that makes it something that's more core to who you become and what you're doing.
Correct.
And
Correct.
how about you, Julie? You're up next on my screen.
Well, I'm going to follow right behind Betsy, that I think hands down the most important thing is productivity software. And I looked, the percentage of people that use it per the poll was 26%. And I just think that number needs to be a lot higher. They're not capitalizing, like Larry said, use everything you've got. They're not capitalizing, and that's like the most powerful program that you can have. Your expander, I can't even type. I open a program. If I don't have my expander open, I'm like, what am I doing? You know, so I use my expander. I've used it forever. Betsy is speed type. It's definitely one of the top ones. You know, there's several out there, but hands down, I feel like your production software is the most important tool you'll have as far as productivity, you know.
Sure, and software in general is important. Making sure you're set up with all the programs you need. You know, I talk to new students all the time, and they ask, "Well, can't I do it with this, or what if I just do it with that?" And I always explain to them, get the proper thing, because that's the important to move forward. You don't want to necessarily be using something that's sort of a patch. That's not going to make you a good transcriber long term. You want something that's integrated in your life, and as you've said, you know, productivity software is important. What about you, Vita? What is your kind of takeaway for our audience on productivity and tools?
Yeah, I think, you know, ours is a little bit different because we have our own platform. So we're working from a draft already. So text expansion is helpful, but maybe it doesn't have the full impact it does when you're typing from scratch. So I think for me, all the spell check, the Grammarly, or in our case, you know, the validations are near and dear to my heart, mostly because I spend a good amount of my day making them. But I think they're really important for checking your blind spots, because you can, you know, you can type really fast, you can get through a lot, but you can miss things. And I think having that backup so that, you know, you don't make those silly mistakes or those near misses or the punctuation, I think having that will help bring that extra step of the finish to your final transcript that I'm sure the customers will really appreciate.
And certainly not last, but Larry, you know, what is your tool recommendation for our audience?
Well, I agree with everyone. What everyone has said. The text expanders are probably the most important for the you know, the typical QWERTY keyboard. Me being on a steno machine, I haven't used those programs, but I will. I think maybe I mentioned it earlier, maybe not. I showed you my keyboard, but related to that is the brand that I use is a Razer, R-A-Z-E-R. It's gaming. Made for gamers, but I like that because the stuff that I'm not literally transcribing, just the, you know, the actual audio file, for other shortcuts, for macros, for you know, add-ins, things like that, I use that with the app that comes with my keyboard. So it's a cloud-based app. You can set up your, I'll do this again, you know, you can set up basically, well, it's got some extra keys on the right that are just to be used for whatever, but all of the keys can be customized. So I use my F functions for, depending on what program I'm, you know, what user setup I have. You can use a set up different users and all sorts of shortcuts and customize each of these keyboards. So I'll use all my numbers over here. I'll just use the regular numbers up here for my typing, but these numbers over here, I've got different shortcuts for whatever, again, whatever user I happen to be signed into, whatever job I'm on. And so that stuff, again, having it be, for me, it works the same way in that it's universal. You know, it's cloud-based. Wherever I log in, I can use those shortcuts as long as I've got one of these keyboards, and I can apply them in, you know, whatever work I'm doing.
Yeah, shortcuts and keyboards and hotkeys and whatever you call it on your particular system. And you know, I'm with you. I love the mechanical keyboard. That feedback is very, you know, is something that I look forward to. Well, I think those are all great suggestions. And now we're going to open up the floor for questions. So if you have a question, please put it in the QA pod at the bottom of your screen, and I'm going to then ask it to our panelists and see what their response is. So please, while we're there are a few questions there, I'll get started, but then I will we'll move on. So please keep adding to the QA pod. Do you see, we kind of answered this already, but do you see Zoom or other ASR closed captioning technologies removing the traditional way we see transcription? And Vita, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, I think It's a wonderful tool in terms of accessibility. Again, sorry for the background noise. I don't see it necessarily replacing, there's a difference between captioning and post-production. The lawyers, the courts, they still need that full finished transcript with those parentheticals. It's not just what's said. There's events that are happening. There's exhibits that are being marked. There's other things. So like I said, I'm always pro any kind of captioning, anything that brings accessibility, but I don't know that it's necessarily going to replace what we have, especially, in general, I think legal transcription and the transcription industry is very conservative. So it takes a long time to see big changes like that.
Well, and I agree with you. We may see a slight shift or we may see some adaptation of the industry, but I don't think we're ever going to see the human factor be removed, or at least that is way into the future. And so I think for a long time coming, we're going to see the introduction of these new tools and then people becoming more efficient. And so they can make more money using these tools. Another question is there a reliable ASR available to the average freelancer? And I'll take this one on. Every platform has their own variant of it. I know some people like using Otter or like using some of the other cloud-based ones. It's really what works best for you. I would just say if you are looking into ASR, make sure you are protecting the data of your clients and that you are making sure that they are secure and that they are properly protecting the privileged information and all of that. So check into it before you just submit it to an online ASR company or speech recognition company or service. Please check that. But there are ones available. Each one specializes in sort of a different thing. So you have to find what's best for your type of litigation or your type of transcribing. Vita, this one's for you. Do people get trained using Verbit's transcription software? And how do you, does it work with word processors or how does it work?
So we do a very kind of minimal training on our end because we work with a lot of different clients. So we do have a lot of variation in terms of guideline and that. So we provide kind of the minimum. It's something that we are very interested in developing going forward. But right now we're working with you, Benjamin, with BlueLedge and with other kind of training, more established training and educational backgrounds for, in terms of taking someone who has no experience and getting them the understanding of court context and all of that.
And then do they get mentored through the process of working with your software and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so we in the beginning, like you said earlier, there's a learning curve for all of this, and it's very important for us that people kind of have the patience, because whenever you start any new program, it's always a little bit, it's different. It's not exactly what you're used to. So what we do, we have obviously our amazing admin team and people that I work with every day. They're always very responsive to questions. And what's really nice is that people they can see their diff. They can see what was changed after them. So they can always learn from their mistakes immediately. I think for us, transparency and feedback is very, very crucial, because I think traditionally, and maybe, Julie, you can talk more about this, people kind of were trained by having that one-on-one mentor relationship where somebody really took you under their wing and taught you everything they knew. And that's wonderful, but I don't think it's an option necessarily for everyone. And so, especially now with remote and everyone working from online, we're trying to build that option in for everyone. So I guess to recap, seeing all the changes, we do have a lot of sessions or feedback or people that you can talk to if you're having platform difficulties. We try to be very responsive because it's a changing thing. We're making changes to the platform constantly to try and make it better based on the feedback. So we're always very in touch with the transcribers to see where we can make that easier and more intuitive.
Great, well, thank you. And Betsy, this one's for you. With the ING-IGN example, what happens about flipping with a word like sign? How do you be careful about that?
Okay, so we were just talking about the ending of a word. You were talking about, not a prefix, but yeah, at the end of the word. So it really wouldn't apply to the word sign. That ending has to be by itself on the end of the word. So something inside of two letters, let's say S and N, that IG is in the middle, it would not impact that at all. So
So
it's
so
not
it's
relevant.
looking at just, ing attached to something
Right,
differently than it would. Okay,
right.
great.
Yeah, yeah,
And so they could always load sign into their dictionary correctly, and then it would always know when it sees those four characters together that
correct.
that was going to be sign.
Yeah,
Um,
I think they were talking about inverting the IGN for ING.
yeah,
And yeah, and it's not relevant because it is a word. SIGN is a word already. It's not the ending on a word.
got it. Okay,
Okay,
that makes sense.
okay.
And so, Julie, this one is for you. Does court audio tend to be cleaner than deposition audio because of the equipment in the courtroom?
I think that just depends. I would say depositions usually are done professionally pre-pandemic. Um, and I would say the depositions are probably easier because you're dealing with less people talking. So in the court, you're dealing with, a judge, however many attorneys and a witness. So sometimes that makes it a little bit more difficult. So it just depends. Every file is different, but I would definitely say with the pandemic, with everybody phoning in, with Zoom, there's been a lot more audio issues. And if more jurisdictions are going to continue doing digital, then there definitely needs to be some things put in place about like what type of microphone, what type of phone you're using, background noise, headphones, because we are dealing still with a lot of issues there.
All right. Well, we are at 8 o'clock. I'm going to hold us maybe a couple more minutes if you guys, panelists, don't mind, because we did start a few minutes late. Get a few more of these questions, and any questions we don't answer, I'll make sure to get typed up and get back to you all watching this webinar as part of our response with the survey and the quiz after this. Remember that there will be a survey and quiz sent to you tomorrow about this event, and then if you pass the quiz 80% or higher and you fill out the survey, you will be issued a certificate of completion, which you can submit to AART. This has not been pre-approved, but we are following the standards for their approval process. We're still waiting for final approval, but you can submit it and they will evaluate it on its own merits when you submit it. So I do appreciate, everybody taking the time to take the quiz. Let's keep going with these. Somebody says they get overwhelmed with sleepiness, and especially when proofing. Any tips on staying awake? Who wants to take that one? Betsy, how about
Caffeine.
you? What?
Caffeine.
Caffeine, okay.
I guess. I don't know, or get up and do some jumping jacks. I don't know. I mean,
They said they jump up and down, so clearly they are taking care of that, but
okay.
great. Well, yeah, I think getting up and moving, taking those
Yeah,
frequent
motion.
breaks is important, motion. Somebody asked desktop or laptop. What I would say is get the setup that's most comfortable for you. A lot of people like laptops because it's portable, but turn your laptop into a desktop. Use monitors, use a keyboard, use a mouse that you're comfortable with. Don't try and hunch yourself over a little laptop and a little tiny screen. You're going to regret it. So if you get a laptop, a powerful one that can be used with the monitors and with your keyboards as a desktop. Desktops are good too. So yeah. Let's see. Let's see. File converting. Does anybody have any recommendations for converting file formats from one to the other, running into for, I think, audio conversion?
Well, I use NCH Swift, Switch.
Yes.
Yeah, so that one is usually works for converting files. For video files, I can usually pull up a program on Google and convert the file, but for most audio, NCH has a lot of good programs.
Yeah, and I will say if you're using a proprietary program, talk to the program manufacturer or go to their website and download their program. A lot of times that will help you. Sometimes even when just downloading their player, that will install a new what they call codec or basically key for your computer to unlock the audio, and that may allow one of those programs like Switch, or I use the Adobe Media Encoder application to unlock it in a way that it couldn't by not having the reader on your computer. So definitely make sure you have those playback softwares. Well, it is 8:03, so I think I'm going to call it for today, but thank you so much to our panel for joining us and for being part of this webinar.